Hi, this is Beth. Welcome to Divine Love Group. Today I am here with my dear friend Mehernaz. She is here to share with us some information on the element of fire, and I'm here to talk a little bit about water. Two elements that you don't normally see, people talking about working together. They're usually considered opposites, and in some ways they very much are. But like most things in the spiritual world, two opposites can also mean two very similar things. Thank you, Mehernaz.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Beth, for having me.
Pleasure. So the first time I kind of realized this, I was spending a lot of time at the river this summer, working with water and just studying it and observing it, and trying to get an idea of just the wisdom that it had to offer. I see water as a collective being that has just amazing wisdom to offer. So I started thinking about watching, the wind blow on top of the water and seeing how, air worked clearly with water. Earth clearly works with it as well, the bottom just of the riverbed or whatever the body of water is. And I started thinking, well, but what about fire? Fire has to have something to do with it. And at first, the only thing I saw was the sun reflecting in the water, which was a pretty big revelation at the moment when you're deep in meditation and you see these kinds of things. But I would love your perspective on, just anything that you've kind of noticed how fire and water tend to merge together.
Oh, absolutely. So, fire, first of all, it's, a lot of people, when they think about fire, they think about, either warmth or there's just two reactions that come either warmth and comfort and hearth and home, or, the element that will burn, if it gets too much. But that's with every element, depending on, they both have, depending on how they're used. But what the element of fire really brings out is light in terms of when there is darkness. It's fire that will keep the animals away. If you're out in the wild, it's going to protect you essentially. And also the sun lighting up the earth. Um, and there's two things that fire really does. I look at it as the feeder. When the sun shines, the plants can grow, and so it's giving you energy and strength to function and perform. And it's always been that more masculine element. And the way I see it blend with water is that water is the feminine. It has the flow, it has the femininity, and like anything else, when it comes to the male and female polarity, when they blend, there is the dance of Shiva and Shakti, and that brings up so much energy, and it's creation. When they come together, it's creation. So the way I look at it in terms of spiritual work is when we are, say, setting up our altar before we start our prayers or channeling, um, the two elements together, having water over there, where water is going to absorb the energies of spirit that come through, and fire is going to throw light and transmute anything that doesn't need to be there. So essentially, I look at fire as the Archangel Michael archetype that's going to like hold the space, for instance, and water is the carrier and it's taking in the information. And then once it becomes holy water with that consecration, and we ingest it and we feel the goodness of it. But if the fire element was not there holding the space, a lot of times water can be taking in also energies that are not positive. If you are, say, working with someone, and there's release happening and the water is right there, the water could be taking in that energy. So essentially, water is the cup that you fill, and fire is the element that holds space for it while it's being filled. And that's the way I look at them in a complementary sense, where it is Shiva and Shakti. And as the sun shines on that beach that you were talking about, and it creates those little diamonds and ripples, and brings the daylight and brings in the nourishment. um, that's what together, the sun shining on the plants and the water feeding the plants is creation again.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think this is really interesting. You said, we have the sun as the masculine and the water as the feminine. And recently I've really been exploring pretty deeply. And part of the reason like this whole channel was created was unity through sovereignty. And that can mean so many different things, right? So if you take a look at a circle, like there is no end and there's no beginning. There's no end without a beginning. There's no beginning without an end. You can go in
Mm-hmm.
any direction with these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started really sitting down and thinking a lot more about water, I see both, I can see it as a sovereign male and female as well, right? So water has this really gentle flow of ideas and creativity and, just a nice little trickle where you just kind of go with the flow and you get creative ideas flowing in, all these different things. And then there is this brute force as well, the creation of the Grand Canyon or something along those lines, that it's a little bit more of a masculine energy of setting boundaries and taking action, right? Or waterfalls, like, or geysers, like there's just so many different forms. So do you see fire as having both a masculine and feminine too?
um I get I get a no on that, unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah.
So the element fire is very primarily masculine, and I know that with most elements it is both. Like if the sun shines light on the moon, and then we look at the light that the moon generates as feminine, and even in astrology, the moon is your intuition and the feminine side and your right brain. So in that sense, yes, the fire can have its indirect manifestation where it kind of needs to be cooled down in order to become feminine. um, and in term but with water, this is a very interesting piece that you brought up. The way the way I see it is when it's the dance of Shakti. It's the woman in her maiden form, in her nurturing form, and you know and then it's her warrior goddess when it's the Durga form, or the Kali form when it's making the canyons. And so there is that masculine piece in her. And in a similar way, um, so because she is the container, she has all the aspects inside her. And with fire, I feel like because he is the creator, he pushes that out and can create a feminine side through the moon, for instance. So yes, it has both sides, but the way the sides are created are different.
Right.
Like pushing it out or containing it in and having all aspects of the container in you. So I would think of it in that sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of words, but like reflection, inflection, but it's not it's not quite the right word, but it's along the same
Yes, yes,
thought
yes.
process. Interesting. Okay. So, another thing that I kind of wanted to bring up is the way that I use water in a daily practice.
Mhm.
Every time I drink water, I have, plastic jugs or you know, glass glasses or drinking bottles, whatever the case might be. I tend to put like a lot of stickers and intention into them. I write words. I have a water cooler. So every time I change the jug, I end up putting a bunch of words on it that are meaningful to me at that moment. A lot of times it's peace and love and healing and these kinds of like broader, terms and ideas that my family and I just drink in. It programs the water. And one of the beautiful things about water is that it's very receptive to information and programming. So I put that information on there. I put stickers on my water bottles. If I'm on my tea, my like little teapots, I write on those. If I'm sick, I write with dry erase markers a lot more than like any other kind of marker because it comes off. On my like stainless steel pots, you know, I write healing if I'm sick and I'm making myself some soup, something along those lines. But then you can also use it in all kinds of other ways of, you know, rituals, like you said. Like, so anytime you and I are having those like amazing conversations, so now I have intended that this water is going to be filled with the energy of this conversation, and I will drink it for the rest of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
an hour or so afterwards, after we talk, and I get to continue in the energy that you and I have created in this conversation. What you probably have some really creative ways that you use fire outside of just, you know, maybe like writing an intention and burning it. So what kind of cool fire stuff do you do?
Okay, yeah, no, this is beautiful, by the way. I love all those ideas, and it's so nourishing, like that nourishment that water gives you, and literally it's life force, you know, we're made of it. So that's beautiful. Thank you for that, Beth. With fire, the primary use of fire, the way I look at it is it using it as an element of transmutation, and transmutation and holding space. So I use it a lot when it comes to healing. I use the violet flame to clear a room. Anytime I enter my apartment after a very long day, or if I'm traveling and I come back, I will use violet flame to clear and transmute. And I would use that in my healings. And then if I'm feeling something which I don't want to feel, I burn myself in the flame to feel that transmutation. That is one way of using it. Another way I use fire is when I want to do something creative. I think about um, a little spark of fire, and that becomes a big ball in, you know, of light eventually. And then I ask it my questions, which brings me ideas, because literally it is a ball of light. And when we are creating anything, when we're in the process of creation, whether you are downloading something spiritual, or whether you're an artist and you're painting, or you're a singer and you're composing a song, we are tapping into the superconscious, and you're downloading the idea and then bringing the idea into the earthly plane. So accordingly, when that idea is being downloaded, I ask for that the fire element to kind of bring it to me quickly. It's almost like it lightning, or the like traveling across light years or something like that, and it just bursts it into your brain into the form of a download. So that's another way I use fire. And of course, just when I want to be comforted, then I will light a candle or sit by a fireplace and just feel that warmth coming inside me. So any kind of feelings of coldness, and I don't necessarily just mean a physical coldness in the weather, but if I'm just feeling like I don't have enough warmth or nourishment on that particular day, then I ask the fire to come and nourish me deep inside. So that is another way that I use the element of fire, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the personal aspect. I come from a lineage of Zoroastrian priests, and we are keepers of the fire. So, and we have fire temples in which we worship fire. So when I go for a worship ritual, a lot of the rituals involve having a fire and a circle around it where the mantras are spoken. A lot of Hindu rituals have it. They're known as yagnas or pujas, and a lot of Zoroastrian rituals have it. So that element of fire, while you're doing a ritual, is holding space for you, because it's letting any darkness around it transmute. So while you have that fire in front of you and you're sitting around the fire, and as you're staring into the fire, as the mantras are being chanted, any kind of darkness that's around you and inside you is being transmuted. So ceremoniously, that's another way. Just like we would like light a candle before we say a prayer, and that would change the atmosphere or bring light into a room. So that's another way I would use it.
Beautiful. I love that. You remind me, I was lucky enough, I had a friend who lived near me for a time who was willing to share with me his sweat lodge and go through that whole experience, which there is absolutely nothing in comparison. And I miss it like crazy. It was the absolute best experience to sweat out, let out, sing out whatever needs to happen, and release everything that needs to be released. And you come out absolutely feeling reborn. The most beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of cultures use that element for release and transmutation.
Yeah, without question. I'm thinking too, I think that I don't have that much, and yet every single video I do, I prep by lighting some candles around me. And even the most basic of things, you do it in its pure impulse that you do it. And it's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I love those little string lights behind you. They bring a nice little glow and warmth. Like
That's right.
I'm
Your little
looking
fairy lights. I have to bring my fairies in.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we need them.
Of course.
Especially when we're doing something creative, right?
Right. That's right. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining. I would love to go more in depth on another video on this, maybe explore some other elements, but I just kind of wanted to do a quick video and kind of touch at the very, tip of the iceberg. That's another thing I have to say is there are so many sayings out there in my daily life that I've noticed lately that have to do with water, and it makes me laugh. Everything I say tends to be like, it's upstream, it's downstream, it's tip of the iceberg, it's in flow, it's everything I say. So so let's plan on doing another video that goes a little bit more in depth, but thank you for this really brief overview that we can just kind of, share a little bit of high level information with people. And I look forward to the next.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Beth. It was beautiful.
Thank you.